Thank you for joining. Always, I can see a lot of people interested in our breakfast briefing, and that's really good for us. And I'm really glad that people are always interested. The only difficult thing, to be honest with you, is to find new topics. But I'm really glad that today we have Katie Kukunashvili with us from Schroders. And she will talk about AI-powered governance. She has a very strong experience in choosing providers, navigating regulations, and also she will give you a lot of hints regarding the practical implementation of AI tools because she has been doing that in her company. So I think that's going to be a very good breakfast. If you have any question during the session, please do not hesitate. You can put it in the chat or you can directly ask them to Katie and she will be more than happy to answer. Just to let you know, the session is going to be recorded. And one last point before I give the floor to Katie is to let you know, if you have any idea for future breakfast or forums, please send an email to ILA team to let them know, because sometimes we run out of ideas and we want to match what you want, guys. So I wish you a very good session, and Katie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Richard, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. So happy to see you here. I'm prepared with my coffee and very happy to have this conversation with you. As already mentioned, I'm very happy to take your questions. I will also pause at certain points where you might have questions, but also please feel free to raise your hand and stop me. I'm as keen to learn from you as hopefully I will be sharing some new information and will also be taking in some of your feedback and comments and new ideas on this very topical theme now. AI-powered governance, I think, is something that you've heard about a lot. I'm sure you've read about it. There are conferences and talks and webinars. So I'll try to be as concise as possible, but also since we've done this for a long time at Schroders already, I'll be sharing our findings and experience, and hopefully this will be helpful for you too. Now, first, I thought that I would start by talking about what we've done thus far. We are very fortunate at Schroders that we got access, basically universal access, I would say, to powerful tools early on. Back when in 23, this new tool burst on the scene. ChatGPT released its model. We all learned about what machine learning is and probably way too much about how it works. We already had the access from November of that year. So we were really just testing out, seeing within the parameters of the company policy, of course, and the risk and the IT restrictions that were put in place promptly after the tool became available. Within those parameters, we started testing, and that would be my very first advice, really, that this is not a tool that's perfect out of the box. And it's also not the same for every company, every team, every process. It needs to be adapted, it needs to be tested. So the first step that I think was correct at Schroders and that we did right is to test. We didn't see that as a prohibitive thing that, we didn't know what the tool did. We were supported by the right framework, by the right policies, and that would be my second advice. And with that framework, I think being creative and innovative was the key. The way we use LLM, so just to explain the lingo a bit, although I'm sure you're familiar, LLMs are a subset of AI tools. It's called large language models. They work well, as is in the name, with words, with language, with writing. They're less good with maths. If you try to ask it to analyze huge data that's math or formula heavy, you will very quickly find that it's not as efficient. But it's brilliant with language. which was great for us because we work with language. On the first slide, you will see our biggest findings or the biggest efficiencies and effectiveness that we see in LLMs in the way we started using it back 2 years ago and continue to use it as we've honed the process over these months and quarters. And I've also included a quick screen grab of our tool. It's very generic. As you might see, I've taken out some of the more perhaps proprietary names or information, but if you have already implemented something similar in your company, my guess would be that you see something similar. Also, if you use ChatGPT for your own purposes or the Google AI tool or any other tool, it's very similar. The idea is that you use the tool as a conversationalist. Basically, you chat with it and you give it tasks. Before we move to how to give it tasks or how to use the tools in practice, I can just summarize the appeal of this tool and why it's worth the trouble for us. Firstly, it's important to say that the foundation needs to be correct. What I mean is that all AI tools and the large language models especially are data-driven. So the more structured, accurate, and consistent your data, the better the outcome. That's always the case with all AI tools, which means in our circumstances, in which we as COSAC work, it means that we need to be very good at taking notes and being consistent with the notes we take. I don't mean good as in the quality or how you understand the discussion. What I mean is that you need to have your own internal language of how you take the notes among your team members. Because in order to use your notes or to use your team members' notes, you need to be able to direct the model to understand what you wrote. Whether you have a convention to abbreviate certain terms, you have initials for people, you have and language for longer words, or maybe you denote actions in any certain way. This is a convention and you need to be consistent, and that is the foundation for using any LLM tool. Now, in terms of our benefits, what value add did we see? First of all, we see optimized efficiency because structuring data, having the right process in place means that you need to have a really well thought out cycle. So it needs to be planned out, A to B, how you start your minutes template, how you pre-populate it with certain contextual information that you know is going to come up, and how you divide up that work among your team members. That's extremely important, not only because it exposes maybe more junior team members to hands-on practical work, but also because it saves time, the very expensive time, hopefully, of a senior COSAC when preparing for the meetings. So structuring how you prepare for meetings is key. You can have template minutes. You can have a process for reading through the papers so that you can identify the right parts that will eventually end up in the minutes. That's step one. Secondly, we see improved productivity, and that's directly connected to step one, because as a company secretary, I no longer do the whole A to Z of minutes, but I can divide up that work among my team members, even if they don't attend the meeting itself, which for us was revolutionary because that's the first instinct any COSAC has, right? How can I give someone the task of writing my minutes if they were not in the meeting? It's unthinkable. But in this case, if you divide up the tasks and you have the prep as the first stage for templates, you have the notes, and then you have the outputs as a pre-last stage, with final review being the last stage. As you as a COSAC, as a senior professional, qualified in the meeting experience, you can focus on the quality of the final output and refining that rather than the prep stages. We also found that this approach can be used for other subordinate use cases, meaning if you need to review papers, if you need to try to eliminate maybe duplication, or if you want to make the papers a little better, perhaps the executive summary isn't quite as good, LLMs work really well for that too. And additionally, when prepping the templates, we know that context might not be fully discussed, right? In meetings, you often go through items, people are familiar, they skip the context, they skip the intro, and they go right straight to the decision. You cannot do that in the minutes. You still have to invent the full meeting, the full dialogue, because the decision will not have right context otherwise. You can use LLMs to do that instead of going through the papers and summarizing them yourself. I'm pretty sure people are more or less familiar with this already, because these are really readily available functionalities for all LLMs. And finally, we also use LLMs to sort of up our game in a way, or improve the final quality of output, because we're all human. No one likes to read, proofread, and do 4, 6, 8 eye checks. LLMs particularly can be excellent for this purpose. So we use this all the time. So proofread, style, do the dates and day of the week match, things like this, the things that we often overlook as humans because we're tired and we've been looking at this for a while. LLMs are excellent, and it really does help us win over our stakeholders, because it's annoying to read a set of minutes that has lots of spelling mistakes. People get annoyed with that. And I think it's a really quick win and low-hanging fruit, and can be achieved very easily with LLMs. One other thing I wanted to highlight, and then I'll pause for questions. I think I saw some coming up in the chat box. Is structuring your prompt. Now, I'm sure you've read a lot about prompt engineering, and a lot has been written about it. Some of it closer to perhaps the science of machine learning than others. But there are lots of approaches. So the message I want to give here is to be creative with this. And by that, what I mean is you can even use your own LLM to help you write prompts. You can use it to help you describe tonality of your existing minutes, or the style, and then use that description for your prompts. So you can say, I like this set. How do you describe the style of this? And LLM will come up with language. You will take that language and you will put it in the prompt and say, now summarize my notes in this style. So the simple things like this. But one framework that we found internally to be helpful, and again, not the only one, this is not our invention. This is all around the internet, so nothing proprietary there. You can find your own ones, is what we call the CD framework. So context, instructions, details, input. And I've outlined it on the slide as well. It works best if you know what you want to have as your output. And I think that's the key, and why it's an iterative process working with LLMs. You start with a prompt that has all 4 of these elements, and then you refine. And finally, I will just say here, this is something that I will also address on the next slide. As you test, it is absolutely critical that you have a record of what works and what doesn't work, so that you don't make the same mistakes again, but also so that you can share with other people and they don't have to go through the same testing. All right, so I think, Risha, I'll pause here. I've been speaking for a while now. I'll give others an opportunity to ask questions. If there are any in the chat, I would be really thankful if you could read them, and I'm happy to take the questions at this point.
Yeah, there is no question yet in the chat.
Okay.
We have just 2 messages, but more good morning messages. So happy for people to jump in and to share their experience or ask questions to Kelly of how they did that themselves or want to do it.
No, it's still the morning.
Maybe that would be interesting to know in the audience if a lot of people have implemented the same kind of tool internally. Anyone? No one? So you're the only one, Katie?
What a pioneer. I'm sure they have. It's probably just a little early. We still need the requisite amount of coffee in the blood. Happy. I am not aware. Sorry, I think
we have one. So
okay.
There was an independent director saying that he's not aware that like clients or people were yes mandates have implemented this.
Okay.
So I think that's very good.
Well, I will also talk about the limitations of the tool and how I think that we are safe as a profession for now. But I also think that it's important that we take on these tools because really they do make the outputs better. How long will it take you to prepare the template, and how much time have you saved by using it? Yes, so thank you so much for the question. That's really important. Also, I think for practical implementation will give good insights to people. So first of all, the template will depend on how well you've organized yourself. So first of all, having a bank of templates really helps. On our end, we try to have a few. So if it's an ad hoc meeting for approval of annual accounts, if it's a regular quarterly meeting with a bunch of repeating topics, recurring topics, we have those already in place. So we don't have to build up the skeleton. That saves time. If you're building up that skeleton, then take previous minutes, delete all the content that was specific to the previous meeting, adjust the sequencing and the exact topics to the agenda or any action items or any decision items that you know are coming up, and that's your skeleton. You can take it a step further, which takes a bit more time, but we combine that step with the prep. So any COSAC going into a meeting has already at least skimmed through the board pack. I know that board packs can be hundreds of pages, and you as a COSAC are not expected to know every single detail and data point, but you still skim through it. So as we go through the pack, we also pick out the decisions that are being requested, the acknowledgements that are being requested. So basically the things we know are going to end up in the final set. And of course, we don't predict decisions. That's an important point. We don't know what the board will decide, but we know that they will discuss those points. So we summarize either from executive summaries or the papers themselves. We summarize the context, we describe the topic, and we describe the ask because we already know what the board will get asked. And that is a template. In the meeting itself, so I would say, again, depending on how prepared you already were and how long the pack is and how long the meeting is going to be, I would say 3 to 4 hours is a good time for a quarterly meeting lasting 5 to 6 hours with a pack that has at least a couple of hundred pages in it. For the really, ad hoc quick ones, an hour, less than an hour prepping would be fine. And then we take that template, and I, as a COSAC or the COSAC attending the meeting, will input my notes into the right section. That really saves a lot of time. And it's very important for the LLM outputs to be effective because you don't want to take notes that are simply chronological. As you know, directors jump around a lot when they discuss things. They make a decision at one point, and then 3 hours later, they go back to that decision and maybe reverse it or add to it. You don't want that chronology in the output because LLM will get confused and it will maybe conflate two topics. So what I do is when I know that there is a topic discussed, let's say topic X, I take those notes there at one point of the meeting. If a couple of hours later we go back to that, I go back to that section of my template minutes and keep taking notes in that section so that all of my notes on a single topic are grouped up together. The same goes for actions. As you all know, I'm sure actions can come from different board members at different times of the meeting, not necessarily contained to that discussion. So that's important. At the end of the day, I think as a very rough estimate, just to motivate people, I find, and other COSACs in my team find, that we save roughly half the time that we used to spend with a normal process. So about 50% time saving overall when you put everything in from all team members. Thank you. That was a great question.
We have two more.
Yeah, I've managed to work my chat so I can see them now.
Okay, perfect.
So what are the best AI tools for minute drafting? Docify? and board intelligence. Yes, so that's a very good intro to my next slide. If you don't mind, I will save that question for that slide. I will do a bit of an intro on how to select service providers, what we've done, talk about the service provider we currently use, and then I'll tell you some of my impressions on the others. But at that point, I will be very interested to hear everyone's views if you use board intelligence or others. Also, what is the role of senior corporate governance officer after good implementation of efficient AI tools? I would say the same as before. It's just that you get more efficient, you can take on a bit more work probably, and also most importantly and most evidently is that the quality of the outputs is just so much better, and you are much more in charge and in control of the content you put in there because you have more time to do so. And the last one, what about AI as a consultative observing board member? Oof. Again, I think I'll save this question towards the end because it will tie in well in the conclusion that I'm making around as I foreshadowed how safe we are as a COSEX for now, and I think board members similarly can rest easy that for now at least the technology isn't there, and also I think in terms of the approach or attitude we're not there. Shall I go to the next slide then? I think that's a very good foreshadowing for the next one. Yeah, great. Okay, so here I wanted to give you a bit of a background on what we've found when looking at different service providers. What we found helps us make that decision and have that discussion internally, and also the different categories of criteria that you might want to consider. So first, I think you know your processes best. You know whether you already type your notes or not, whether you already have a template-based system in place or not. I think building onto your existing process is important. You can tweak it. You can make it easier for yourself to have good data, i.e. good notes as inputs. But doing a revolution on how your team works just because you want to test a tool is probably not the way to go. It will probably cause a lot of frustration, delay, cost, and so on. So my first advice would be look at your process, map it out, and see where you can insert AI/LLM tools and find the best benefit. On our end, I think what we've looked at in terms of the universe of tools available, and there's many, there are 4 buckets of the types of models that I would identify. So the first one is probably the one that says we take your auto-generated transcripts, we apply some prompts, proprietary or not, they either let you tweak those prompts or not, and then we give you an output. And you just take that output and then you turn it into actual minutes. I will come back to the limitations of that model and why just the transcript might not be good enough. Then we have models that rely on the notes, agendas, or other inputs that you might be generating. That might be I think similar to what board intelligence does, where you just upload a starting draft and it just helps you reword things or expand upon detail or make it shorter or make it read better. Those still are, I guess that you could still count them as LLM depending on how they work, of course, but they rely on your input fully. They don't take in any other information from the outside. Then there are models that in a very large category, what I've seen, that are built into your existing platforms. I would say Diligent is a good example of that. And they leverage the information that's already available to them on that platform. So they might go into your papers because they're already in the pack, and they might suggest, let's summarize it this way, and perhaps you can put it in your minutes. Or they can go a step further and they can generate a template for you, either based on something you've uploaded as a starting point, or they have built-in templates for you. But they don't take in facts from the meeting. meaning they don't necessarily take in your notes from the meeting, or they don't listen to the meeting, or they don't give you the transcript upload possibility. And then the fourth category, and I know that sounds a bit like a cop out, but there are models that combine some or all of these functionalities, and they try to do that in different modalities. So either they're built into your packs, or it's an add-on that you access from the browser, or it could already be built into your own tools, like maybe Copilot you have. So these are like the general models. So the first step, I would say, look at what you do and try to see which of these models would be the easiest for you to implement, because ease of integration will be key. If people don't find it easy to use, if they feel like they don't have enough knowledge or tech savviness to use them, or if they're just lost in the functionality, they're not going to use it. So that's your first job, usually, just to remove that user friendliness blocker in the first stage. In the selection process, some of the key considerations, so I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention legal and regulatory. That is something for each company to think about, how it applies to them specifically. But I've included some general flags, basically. So some of the things you might want to consider among many others that will be flagged by your internal teams. But this could be a good starting point. So first of all, legal is the key risk. Discoverability, creating duplicate records of the same meeting. These are big risks. Your legal teams will be very concerned about them, and you will be well advised to go and talk to them first and foremost. This will probably also include IT, but the combination of the two. Compliance with GDPR will be important. So if you are looking at models that take in transcripts, or maybe record the transcripts for training purposes, if you allocate voice to a person and you have maybe a tool that will keep recognizing the voice in some way, you should think about GDPR, because those can be identifiable data points and might be in scope. Also, collaborate with your procurement teams and supplier oversight teams. That's especially relevant for companies in Luxembourg. So regulations like DORA and the AI Act will capture these. I know that Katia has a really interesting session provided by ELA coming up, and I would recommend exploring that, because I know that she's planning to give you more insights there. And then also look at what you have available. So if you use Microsoft, we all know they have Copilot. If you use Google, we all know. So all of the major IT providers will have some sort of a tool. So work with your procurement, work with your IT, and see if you can leverage those tools more easily. It will just make it easier for you to integrate, more cost effective. You basically have one foot in the door already, so why not? So those are my first insights. On the tool integration, I've already talked about making it easy. You do need to focus on training. You will be surprised how one person will see something as user-friendly while another will not. This is very personal, so do invest the time in training. Also, consider what type of server arrangements you want to have. Let's say I'm not an IT professional, so I don't want to go into any specific lingo there, but the general distinction is, do you want to keep the data you generate or input on your premises internally, which will come under a different IT umbrella, or do you want to keep it externally and have the external party certify to you that it's been deleted, let's say, or it's been managed correctly? So what is your risk appetite and profile there? But it's a consideration, and some you should give thought to that, or ask the relevant people internally. And as I already said, it really depends on existing workflows. So really look at your workflows before you integrate something. Know what you're integrating and where you're integrating it. Then I would just say a couple of words around specifically minute taking, because you might want to integrate LLMs for something else. You might just want to try it out for papers, perhaps. But for minute taking, I think it's important you think about the infrastructure and the training. So this includes your templates, allocating roles correctly. People should know when and how they should do their part of the work, because it's a chain. And if one part of the chain fails, the rest will not be as effective. So invest in that. Have very robust testing records, and you need to have a clear assessment framework. So it's very difficult to say, unless you have good records, how much time you've saved. Because as we all know, we're not in the perfect world where we just sit down and write minutes from start to finish. You're going to be distracted. So you really need to do that assessment consistently so that you can justify your business case. And finally, if you're using anything based on transcription, we've found it the hard way that the quality of input, the voice input, will vary the quality of outputs widely. So make sure that you have the right room, the right technology, hardwares like microphones or speakers if you need to. And if you have the possibility to do so, test before you have the live scenario, because it will really depend on how good your mics are and how good the voice input is, whether you can use that tool or not. Now for the practical limitations, and here I will try to address the role of the senior secretary or senior governance officer, and can we have a board member as an AI board member? So none of these tools will be good at picking up nuance or content or context or body language or implied meanings or references to prior events that you cannot find or trace factually in the facts of the meeting, either agenda, packs, or what has been said. As long as there are human beings making decisions, writing papers, you need human beings analyzing those decisions and making the right choice of wording, language, background, content within the minutes. Because it's an art as much as it's a science. There is no formula, as anyone who has tried to write a paper will tell you, because every decision is different. Every paper is ever slightly so different. So I believe that these tools are excellent. They make us more efficient. The quality of output is higher. They try and in most cases succeed to sort of shoulder the mental load. I would say that is the biggest value add at this stage. But I don't foresee where I would have a AI tool and they would go into a meeting, and without reviewing it or having a alternative objective view of the meeting myself, I can just copy what's given to me by LLM and put it in the minutes and be done with it. That will never happen. And it's absolutely paramount that you have those checks in place so that you don't have a situation where somebody just copied an output without reviewing it and put it in front of directors, because most likely it will be flawed and sometimes highly flawed. So I don't believe that we're there. And as long as there are humans in the chain of decision making, we'll probably never get there. At least that's what I see now. But that's not a bad thing. That's a very good thing. And it doesn't mean that the tools are not worth exploring. It means they're more than worth exploring, because the humans need to have that bandwidth. And this takes away some of the more repetitive tasks so that you can do what you do best. I think that's all I wanted to say. Just a shout out about confidentiality and sensitivity of information. Please be very mindful. Us more than probably any other profession, we need to be careful about what we write down, even in the notes. So be very careful about the output, what you maintain, what you save down, either as notes or the first drafts. It's extremely important to have that review in place. And before I go to new questions, because I see a couple have popped up, I will also finish by saying, by answering the previous question about what tools we've used. So currently, I've already shown you our internal proprietary tool. We use that all the time, not just for minutes. I use it for my email or writing papers, and that's a well integrated part of my work ethic already. Just as I use Word, I use that tool. I don't even make a differentiation between an Office suite and that. But on top of that, we've recently started using a brilliant tool. We like it a lot. It's called Brief. The company is WiseWorks. They have the right approach and attitude, in my view, because they approach this, as I say, as an art. They don't see it as a formula where they've just put in an prompts and our architecture and they just run it regardless of what the input is. They really work with you, which we find super helpful. The way it works is that it listens, it takes in a transcript, but it doesn't save one. So the legal risks that I was highlighting are well taken care of. I have an opportunity to put in some template information, so agenda or some of the papers can be taken in, and then I have the opportunity to edit. It's a good tool because, for example, for several reasons, but one of the things I found very helpful in the meeting is if I'm distracted, and company secretaries are always pulled in different directions during the meeting, and I cannot concentrate or listen to every single word, or if the language is very technical or the topic is very technical, I can always rely on that transcript, not the transcript itself, but the output, which will be detailed, and I can double check my understanding, in addition to having already a summarized snippet that I can use as foundation for my further editing or note-taking. So that is a model which I would put in the category of models that combine everything. So in the last category, but there as well, I wouldn't say that, I'm just going to relax, not even take notes and let Brief take over. That's not going to happen. But there are other tools similar to that. Board Intelligence is one, not similar in the sense that, the model they function, but similar in the sense that they can alleviate some of your work, make it easier for you to do your job either in the meeting room or outside after the meeting. So I'm very keen to hear what other people have been using. So I'll stop here, and then maybe, Rujar, we can take the questions that have come up afterwards.
Yes, so thanks, Carrie. This is really useful. I hope it's the same for everyone. And looking at the question, I think it is. Should we take the next question? So, have you integrated in your proprietary tool documentation handling, execution, archiving, etc.? And if yes, please share any challenges you have faced.
So I think what this question is getting at is the so-called agentic AI, because it implies that the AI tool will come out of its native environment and go into other environments on your computer and do some tasks for you. It is work in progress. So I would feel more comfortable after we've done some testing with this. There are steps we've taken in terms of querying documents. So I think colleagues at PwC, there is this really brilliant AI practitioners club that PwC does. So shout out to them. So shout out to anyone really who has structured and knowledge sharing forum for us, because that's super important. Same for ILA, and thank you. What I would say there is that querying documents is probably a bit more tested and works. Again, if you don't ask very maths or calculation-based questions. What I mean here is you can have a chat UX, so chat exterior. You ask a tool, how can I get my get approval for this directorship, let's say, based on an appointments policy. And the chat, so the LLM or the AI tool will go into a set of policies, find the right one, read the right section, and spit out the right answer. It takes some training, but that's a functionality that we are testing. In terms of fully agentic, where you say, here's a folder, a document popped in it. If you see a document, take this document, read, do this task, then file this document here. I think theoretically it's possible. We've seen some demos. We haven't tested it internally yet. We are in the process of setting up that functionality and testing it safely. But it's promising. And I'm looking forward to that happening because I would really like to cut down on the time when I have to archive my minutes. That would be very helpful.
Thanks, Katie. And another question is to know how much time you spend for reviewing, correcting the draft. So you said like for preparing, you say approximately half the time, but what's the time you save as well, I think, in terms of review of documents afterwards?
So the data point that I mentioned earlier, half the time as compared to no LLM process, includes everything. That includes my review as well. So just to make it a little more practical, that data point, I can say that, well, for let's say a 6-hour meeting where I would need to spend maybe 4 or 5 days doing the whole thing, I would expect to spend maybe 3 days now. Why I am being a bit more careful giving you exact numbers is because it really depends on the meeting. There are meetings that last an hour, but I might spend a week trying to get the language right, because it really depends on what was said, how much input I need to get from other people. Is it sensitive from a regulatory perspective? So all of these fit into the final timeline. And that's why it's important to have that tracking, really consistent tracking for every scenario that you use AI. I hope that's helpful. I'm not being deliberately cagey on this, but it really just depends. I'm really curious to hear what other people have used. So someone mentioned board intelligence. Would you mind sharing what your findings are? Is that tool helpful for you? How is that working out for you? No, Rusha, are you interested in anything else additionally?
I would be very glad if someone could share, his experience in implementing the IA tool. But it seems that a lot of people did not do it yet. So maybe what will be interesting as well is to understand, are you contemplating implementing that, or what's the process internally? Why you didn't do it? What are your challenges internally? I know that sometimes the IT teams are, depending on them, very reluctant, so to say. So maybe that's one of the barriers you face. But that will be good if some people could share their experience on that.
Fully agree, Rusha. I would be very keen to hear. Demo of Brief, and it seems to be a very complete tool and address the data storage aspect. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Severine. Absolutely. That was, one of the biggest considerations when we chose this tool. And as a very pleasant surprise afterwards, while it does have a lot of the functionality and the limitations considered already, and the process has been clearly thoughtful, the process of developing this tool. The developers are very hands-on. They're involved. They work with you. They talk to you. They have an excellent support team. So in the process of the meeting, they come back to you very quickly if you need some tech help or you have any questions. So we were very pleasantly surprised. And the ethos, like the spirit, I agree with, because it's work in progress. Like, this is not a complete, ready to go out of the box tool. And we will be probably long before it becomes one. So I was very happy that a company was so humble and receptive and proactive. So.
And can I ask Katie, what is it a free tool, or what's the roughly the price of the tool, or how?
Oh, I would refrain from doing that.
No, but it's not a free tool, right?
No. It's not a free tool. No.
But can you say, is it something very expensive, or
No,
I don't know, because
I don't think it's a prohibitive price point. I wouldn't say it's a prohibitive price point at all, because you don't have to integrate it into your systems. It's fully standalone. So internally as well, you don't have as much of a cost asking your IT teams to test things or integrate things. I think there too, it wins out because you don't have to onboard and integrate in a costly manner. Yeah.
I think we have a lot of other points. One thing I've seen in the chat and is important, and I think that's also why some people have not implemented the tools yet, is the allocation of people to first analyze and do project management and the testing. So in your case, Katie, you were doing that yourself and you were dedicated the time, or you had a specific like workforce, or how did it go?
Well, I think everyone will hate me when I say this, but at Schroders, we were so lucky to have a dedicated governance operations team. I think it's probably pioneering, or at least among the very few companies who have such a dedicated team. So we're super lucky. So I was really a passenger in that journey, a very lucky and hopefully helpful passenger, because as an expert, you need to be involved. You cannot just take that as for granted, that people will know exactly what you need. As I said, going back to the point of, look at your process, look at your workflow. But it is a process. You do need to set aside some time. You do need to work with legal, IT, procurement, oversight. That coordination needs to be done, and it's an investment. So doing it in a thoughtful way, and again, leveraging what you already have as a cycle, I think helps. It will just take away the extra friction of creating a whole new process.
Thanks. And one other interesting one is to know if you got some feedbacks from the managers, directors, and what's the feedback, the questions they had. Like, I'm sure they asked, oh yeah, but what about like the information, or they spread somewhere?
Absolutely. Very happy to address that super important question. We have directors on the line too, so it's important for them to know as well that regardless of the tool used, you as a director have every right to know. You need to be told in advance. You need to become comfortable with using whatever tool the team has chosen. We've done that extensively. So we've prepared detailed information about the tool for our directors, for them to know what exactly is the IT risk or legal risk, how we've remediated it, how it works in practice. We get their sign-off before any transcription is done. We even have some language. When the tool joins our meeting, it tells directors this is what's happening and these are the terms and all of your rights are protected, and so on, depending on what the company wants to say. And in terms of feedback as well, both for our internal tool, and again, directors were fully informed. This was not a transcription-based tool, so there was no sign-off needed. It was just a efficiency tool for me internally. We get really good feedback because directors are so happy to have higher quality minutes to review. One of my toughest clients, and I refer to them sometimes as clients, one of the toughest ones, who is really constructive but super detailed, for the past, I think, 3 quarters now, has come back to us with 0 comments on minutes. He's had exactly 0 edits. It's such a win. We have his feedback in a separate folder and we celebrate it. Because really that's the biggest win. I mean, decreases friction, frees up so much time, and there is a lot of goodwill. It just helps the relationship with the key stakeholders.
Yeah, I think this kind of feedback will really help people to start or continue in this way.
Definitely.
So I think someone also mentioned that WiseWorks team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. WiseWorks is the company that has developed Brief. Brief is the name of the tool. WiseWorks is the company.
Okay. So feedback from client, I think you just said it. So it's very, very good feedback.
Very good feedback indeed. I'll stop sharing. Perhaps that will be just easier maybe to invite participation.
So maybe, Kate, in terms of steps as well, is that first you also engage everyone in the company, meaning like the directors, they know you're going to work on that, you're like their support, and I think that's super important because if you don't have this is very difficult.
Absolutely. And for those who work in large companies, you might find that a small team somewhere in a different function has already done something similar. So sharing this information, one of the reasons I was also so happy to do ELA, I've done a couple of talks as well with CGI in the UK. One of the reasons for doing this is because we are stronger collectively. You can never test as one person as much as you can test as thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, right? And testing is key here. So the more we share, the better. And you should definitely do that internally in your organization. Ask around, see if someone has already implemented a tool like that. Can you leverage that? Can you make it better? Can you help them test it? Sharing is everything in this case. And makes the tool safer as well, I think, when everyone's aware.
I don't think we have all the questions, but people feel free to jump in.
I think there was one that perhaps I've missed. There was one from Severine. Can you personalize it and how long it is stored? I think she's asking about the data storage arrangements with Brief. Brief, but maybe other providers too, should give you the option of setting your own parameters. So for Brief, we have, I mean, I won't talk about the details because that's specific to Schroders, but we have a certain limit on how long they can store, what they can store, what can be downloaded by the users, what cannot be, what's accessible, what's not accessible. All of that is up for negotiation, and it should be for any tool, because at the end of the day, that's your information and you should be in control of how you want to store, use, or save it. Ah, okay. Thanks, Erin. Sorry, I misunderstood. Yes, indeed, you can. You can personalize all of it. Any other questions?
Seems that we ran out of questions for today. But
it was super clear. Oh, any specific reference to using the tool for AGMs? I think AGMs are very, they're a different animal. If you mean in terms of maybe counting votes or generating attendance lists, I would say depends on the shareholder base. So if you have super large AGMs that you have to call, probably best to use proprietary or dedicated tools, or perhaps your transfer agent if that's about funds, because this will get difficult if you go into the hundreds and thousands of proxies. If you have simple tools to generate, LLMs can, if you have simple lists to generate, LLMs are very good with tables. So if you give it like a raw data set of votes received, you can probably generate a fairly accurate table for an attendance list. So simple things probably can be done. Minutes as well. I don't see why minutes cannot be subject to the same LLM tools, to be honest. But I mean, at least AGMs in Luxembourg tend to be quite singular. They're very different from perhaps maybe a public company AGM where shareholders attend and ask questions and there are challenges. But it's a meeting, so yes, why not? I think there's a question on sharing.
Yeah, sharing the slides.
So I don't know if the ELA team will pick that up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're fine to share the slides with ELA to be shared with the participants, they will do it directly.
I can double check and come back.
Yeah. Okay, then I think if we have no more question, we can end the session for today. And thanks again, Kelly. It was super interesting. Learned a lot of things, and now a lot of people have to do the same as you.
Not a problem. And again, the more we share, the better. So thank you very much to ELA and to you for organizing this event. I think it is very helpful to all of us. So thank you.